Welcome to our next iteration of the SaaS Channel Playbook. I'm here with my co-host, Teresa Carrigal, and an exceptional panel including the president of Carasoft and the CEO of NextGen. Our topic today is the future of distribution, particularly for enterprise software and SaaS. I'm looking forward in particular to some of the stories from our panelists on partners that do this well, or vendors that do this well, and also those who don't. All right, with that, let's get to introductions. Teresa.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here, and I'm honored to have both of you here with us today. Craig Abad was one of the people who encouraged me to become an entrepreneur, so I am forever grateful. And John Walters, I was introduced to through one of my favorite people in the Asia region, Wendy O'Keefe. So both of you are terrific. Thank you for joining us. And we have a lively conversation about the future of distribution and the SaaS world. So let's get into it. Go ahead, Angus.
Fantastic. Thanks, Teresa. Craig, how about yourself and a little bit about Carasoft?
Thanks, Angus, and Teresa, thanks for letting me do this with you guys today. Carasoft is a distributor in the U.S. public sector market and Canada. We'll do north of $11 billion this year, and very, very focused in public sector, state and local education and healthcare markets.
Oh, fantastic. Certainly interested in your perspective. And John?
Right. Thanks, Angus. Yeah, we started the business 11 years ago, and we're very much born in this cloud environment where we're all living and breathing as we speak. So heavily into enterprise software, cloud, and cyber security. Started in Australia, moved into New Zealand a couple of years after we started, and now we're up throughout Asia Pacific as well. A little bit shy of Craig's big number there, and we would have just done over 200 million in our business. So we've got a bit of catching up to do, but nevertheless, a lot of the concepts and the attitude and how we go to market emanate some of what Craig's doing. So good to be here.
Absolutely, and great to get the international perspective as well. So with that, we'll jump into the questions. And for those of you attending and listening live, please feel free, as Teresa said in the comments, to ask your questions throughout. I'll be keeping my eye open, and we'll ask Craig, Teresa, or John anytime you have a question. So John, let's start with you. And when we're talking about the future of distribution, what do you think some of those changing dynamics are in distribution, especially as it relates to cloud security and enterprise software?
Well, yeah, thanks, Angus. One of the obvious ones is the actual distribution. The physical distribution is no longer an issue. The current area is it's very immediate, whether it's an enterprise software or a cloud solution. As soon as the order is placed, the customers and the partners can get access to and get it delivered. So that's not an issue, and we're obviously very lucky in the current chip shortage world to be in that market for a start. The second thing would be in enterprise software. I think that the sales cycles are much longer than we've seen in physical distribution market, and that means you've got to add a lot of value along the way and be in the fight with the partner and the vendor right to the end. And therefore, I find that the shopping and changing and shopping around doesn't happen in our game as much, because you've added the value throughout that. And the last thing is, I think we in our role can easily be sidestepped if we're not adding value. So it means we've got to continue to be innovative and look for ways to help the partners and help the vendors win more business, get more access to markets, and so on. And that's really, really important from our perspective and that's helped our model have to innovate. Burning deck scenario, innovate or be sidestepped.
Got it. And just out of curiosity, John, when you, as you've seen that move to cloud and you talked about that reduction in friction, have you seen sales cycles on the enterprise side change at all, or they still? Yeah,
I very much. Enterprise software is very much a long sales cycle, 12, 18 months, 2 years, because we're talking about big end of town, major stuff. The cloud is certainly shortening the sales cycle because we can move certain workloads into a cloud environment very, very simply. Right. But at the end of the day, they're enterprise workloads, so it's not just a quick shift. We've still got to make sure that all of the planning, integration, and understanding and testing is all done prior to going live. So it's a much more agile scenario, but still you've got to plan it well.
Great. Thank you, John. And Craig, what about your perspective in the public sector? What are you seeing in terms of some of those changing dynamics in the future distribution when it comes to cloud security and enterprise software?
Yeah, so we've been in the enterprise software space for a long time, and we probably do $2 or $3 billion in cyber and a couple $1 billion in cloud when you take the SaaS players and put it in it. And I think the evolution we saw the industry go from perpetual to maintenance, and then from maintenance to subscription. And now we're in the mode of it's subscription going to cloud and cloud going to consumption. And so where the sales cycles are in some cases longer, in some cases we're finding customers can deploy stuff really quickly at a small scale, test it out, and if it's successful, ramp up a lot faster than they would have been if they were putting it in their own, if they were putting it on their own perpetual licenses on their own hardware platforms. So the speed and agility that we're seeing in it is in certain customer aspects increased. And then the subscription and consumption model is allowing customers to change more often and not be as stuck or fixed on a specific platform. And if they leave and go to another one, or leave and go to another one and then come back, it's not like the old days where they were stuck with a big perpetual license that they couldn't change. So I think earning customers' business, our reseller ecosystem, we're helping them nurture their clients and get in with their clients for long term, because the customer can change that software solution at any time. They're not as stuck as they were years ago. And I think it's creating more successful cadences for our channel, for our vendors and our channel partners that we support.
I think this opportunity, I think about the TSIA land, adopt, expand, renew model, SaaS model, which I still love. And these, the vendors are good at landing, right? The partners are really good at helping the adopt and the expand and the renew. And I agree with you, Craig. I feel like there's this resurgence of how important the partners are in the SaaS model, and that these Zooms and these players, they can't grow at some point without, you all and these partners. And I think it's a real opportunity right now for folks like you guys to bring a whole new level of value to this partner community. And
I think the other point there, if I could leverage both what Craig said around the consumption and Teresa, is the partners have got to be in an intimate relationship and understand the end user's business model really well.
Great point.
Because that consumption is not going to grow unless they're in there every week or every month or every day, driving the solution and driving the productivity and the ROI of that solution. Whereas you sold a router or a switch or a piece of storage hardware, you put it in a rack and you could come back in 12 months or 3 years time. Yeah.
Right. You have to have a high level of trust and be that trusted advisor to that customer. It isn't the transactional that some of us grew up with. That's a very good nuance.
So, Craig, what you spoke about, much more agile and dynamic environment, which supports the end customer, the end client, to be more competitive, move faster, change in response to their market and their customer demand. And of course, as you said, ramp up or ramp down or even switch depending on those requirements, which means that, from a distribution standpoint, where's the value? How is the value supported? Can you speak to any vendors or partners that you see in the ecosystem, and this can be anonymous, of course, that are doing this well or doing this not so well?
Yeah, so I would offer in our Splunk business, our ServiceNow business, and our Salesforce business, their partner ecosystem shares similar. The successful partners share similar traits where they're really in helping the customer deploy and manage their environments. And the successful partners get these projects up and running really quickly. They get quick successes in their accounts, and the vendors are bringing them into new deals because of that success thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's in this consumption world, what ends up being really critical for the vendors is they don't want attrition. And so a partner that will go in and make sure the customer is happy and continues to use the product and grows the product is a lot better than somebody who's going to go in and oversell the customer that first year and have a disappointed customer. So the intimate knowledge of the products and how to quickly get value is where we see the partner ecosystem really be getting good deals and getting them for a long period of time.
Right. Yeah, those are two key pieces, that fast and efficient onboarding, and then the retention and support. I was just on a call with a vendor earlier today who did analysis of thousands of their opportunities, and they have a 30-day trial period for their software. And in that 30-day trial period, if the integration to the business system is done, they know they're going to get a 90% win rate. So just to emphasize your point. John, what about from your perspective? Any stories to highlight partners or vendors who do this well?
Well, look, I'm happy to name two vendors that we don't deal with. To be fair. But no, seriously, I think obviously changing a current business model into a new business model is always difficult, and it requires either really, really good leadership and or a burning deck scenario to move. It's rare where the leadership will change the business model dramatically to even, in fact, cannibalize some of their current revenues and profitability streams, because they have got the crystal ball, they can see what's coming down, and they actively want to change it. So those leaders and entrepreneurs within current businesses who do it, they deserve a really gold medal for what they've done. And you talk, Adobe was early into the change from perpetual to subscription. Obviously, Microsoft under new leadership, fresh leadership, changed dramatically into the cloud environment as well, ahead of the game. And you've got other laggards who are still trying to get there, and are still are doing it with perpetual licensing, and asking us can we come up with some clever financial modeling to help it look like subscription. Right. So that'll be interesting to see. From a partner perspective, we're seeing a good mix down under, and the mix is young entrepreneurs, and I'm talking young, who have come out of university or wherever and have got nothing to lose and are going for it. And they're born in the cloud, literally, they're digital native, and they're having a go, and they're getting some really, really good traction. And they're only dealing with the vendors who were born in the cloud. And then you've got the other more experienced, hardened, battle-hardened executives, is probably in our ilk of age, who have worked for those laggards and have decided to move and start something themselves. So you got an interesting mix going between the old guard wanting to get, who said, I've had enough of the old, and the new guard, who are the young entrepreneurs. And the young guys are getting a leg up here. They're going a bit harder. They're more aggressive, and they've got nothing to lose.
Did you just say down under? You did, right? The Australian said down under. Okay, just want to make sure you did it. We were waiting for that. Good job. Your point too around these born in the cloud entrepreneurs. I was on the phone with Donna at HP Aruba yesterday, and she said, they're not dependent on the vendors like these other CEO partners that some of us grew up with, who said the vendors have to give me all this stuff. They don't care. They want incremental value, which I think speaks to the future of distribution, like what you all bring in. It may or may not be about a warehouse, right? It might be around digital marketing. It might be around contracts. It's around all of these new kinds of services. And I think it's a great opportunity for, your kinds of companies.
Well, and John and Teresa, to your point, and I think Deloitte says this, that by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. So certainly helps you future-proof your business if they buy into your service and your business model. We actually have a question related to this topic. So Craig or John, feel free to respond here. It's maybe a two-part question. Is the business model for distributors changing then to engage directly with end users or competitively with resellers? So part one. Or how does Disty support the land, adopt, expand, and renew motion? So some pretty big questions there.
Wow, those are two big ones.
Yeah.
We just had this conversation, right, Craig, right before we went live around that question.
So let me take that. A lot of the partners that are really technically superior are not really great in the sales and marketing side of the business. And they're leaning on us to help them with lead gen and demand creation and some of those nurture things that keep a customer in the loop over the course of a year. The other thing we're finding is that they lean on us for a lot of the terms and conditions kind of work. They might only do 10 deals a year, but understanding all the licensing terms and licensing nuances is not something in their expertise. So they lean on us for that. And it pulls us into direct conversations with the customer to make sure that the customer understands how stuff is licensed. And then underneath the covers, what I think that we also bring to the table in that is, as some of the sales cycles get elongated, we're providing a continuity for their deal regs. So if the manufacturer has 2 or 3 reps that come in and out of an account, we're sort of the glue that says, wait a second, but here are the partners that helped in this deal, and here's the partners that helped in this deal. And in the land and expand and nurture motions, we're finding we're helping the manufacturer make sure that, hey, the partners that brought value in it don't get swept away when the customer wants to do a consolidated buy. So we can keep all the partners that should still be in the process, in the sales cycle in there. So that maintaining the deal reg over a long period of time is an interesting value add that a lot of the resellers have come to rely on us for, because of the many different touch points we have within the manufacturers.
That's a great point.
Yeah. From our perspective, we are doing a lot at end user level. Whether it's digital marketing, whether it's teleprospecting, whether it is cloud economics and understand doing audits and governance of software footprints at end user level, whether it's the end user with the partner user utilizing our cyber lab, and I could go on. But the bottom line is, we don't sell directly to an end user. We're doing it in a pre-sales environment at the request of vendors and our partners who are utilizing those services that we offer outside of just traditional or straight distribution. And most of those, in fact, all of those partners and vendors are paying a fee for service to use our services for that. So it's very much non-competitive, and it's very value add. And I firmly believe the only way you can determine whether value is being added if someone's prepared to pay money for it. So that is a different model to what we've seen in the past with traditional distribution and the angst that sometimes happens that may have caused that question.
Yeah.
What's also interesting, the second question around how does Disty support this land, adopt, expand, renew motion? When I think about some of the services you all offer, they're across those buckets. Whereas in the old world, it was on land, and there might have been maintenance contracts that they helped with. And you guys are doing a lot of work in that adopt and expand arena.
And the other thing that's important to understand in this market is that a lot of the vendors we're dealing with, the SaaS vendors, are writing the deal on their own paperwork, and the partners are only, whether you like it or not, are there driving the services.
Yeah.
So therefore, there's not that same dynamic about can we sell direct as a distributor? We're there with a partner to help them land, expand, and consume. Yeah.
One of the things we found, we just did, it was a little while ago, a research project, and all of their incentives for this vendor were on land and renew. And the biggest, and they were, this adopt and expand is where they needed to move a big part of because their customer retention was going down. And so we're seeing the vendors shift their incentives across this continuum. I don't know how that affects you guys, or if you have an opinion on that.
Well, if you take vendor marketing dollars as a measurement,
There you go.
they've
Okay.
all been applied to getting new licenses, and virtually nothing applied to renew, and zero applied to nurture and expand. When hey guys, but a lot of our vendors, they hit a window where half their business is coming from, more than half their business is coming from land and expand, but that's not where any of their marketing dollars are going. So it's interesting. I think everybody in the industry needs to get better at it. But the better we get at it, the better our customers get value out of the software we're selling them.
So
Craig,
true.
I think it's a really interesting point, how you're prioritizing. Well, I care about marketing, but how you're prioritizing marketing as a strategy and marketing spend as it comes through to adoption and expansion. So when thinking about subscription and consumption models, are there any particular strategies or tactics that you employ or you prioritize to support that adoption and then consumption as it relates to marketing?
Either of you have any opinions on innovative things you've seen?
Craig, you go first if you like.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of nurture webinars, a lot of training of customers on the next product they should be deploying. And we're finding we train a customer on a Monday, and the following week they're downloading the new modules. And 2 weeks later, they're putting them into production. So a lot of investments in, education, nurturing, training. We work with UiPath and do build a bot events with their resellers, because the training aspect of the sale can't be ignored. And our customers are all different levels of customers. They need as much help as they can getting smart on the products or getting somebody to do it for them.
That's great.
Yeah, totally agree. And with our marketing budget's sort of really gone through the ramped up over the last few years, and that is all around what Craig said, and marketing, general awareness, as well as the education enablement and so on of how these solutions can work, and we're putting a lot more around the ecosystem of a solution. You think about the next generation of cyber.
Right.
You go back to the old days, and semantic, rest in peace. But they had end-to-end software or cyber solution, so to speak. Whereas now you think of the CrowdStrikes, the Netscopes, the Oktas, and on you go. They are coming together and providing a solution. So who's going to knit all that together? Because if you look at the individual vendors, they market themselves as, say, the Spectre Alliance, but they actually don't offer a solution to win a sale together. So it's up to ourselves and the partners to be able to do that. And so there's a lot of work from us gone into the ecosystem marketing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with CompTIA, we actually did a survey not too long ago, and we asked about training, because that's something that CompTIA obviously cares about. And one of the biggest gaps was in security, because there's so many challenges with security and so much innovation on the technology side, and so many different considerations as you put all those various pieces together. So certainly significant opportunity there. We have another question. This is on rep commission and engagement as it relates to go-to-market models. So the question is, it's a fairly long one. I'd be curious to know how this new model impacts sales reps' commission. As we know, when sales reps are paid directly impacts how, when, and if they sell the desired products and services. Reps are often used to getting paid a single commission upfront when selling hardware. Now with cloud and consumption models, I'd imagine they're getting paid smaller amounts over time. Curious to know how that's being received by sales reps.
Good question, Andrea. Any opinions, guys, on that one?
Any challenges in changing that model, or have you changed how commissions are paid?
I think I'll relate it back to the vendors. When the vendors first go to a subscription model, they feel like they got to pay on big multi-year deals and pay in the same formulas as before. And then they hit a wall and they figure out that it's not sustainable and it's not really the logical way. And so paying their reps on consumption ends up being, sort of the model that they all evolve to. And I've seen them go from immature to mature models, and they all end up in, hey, we're going to pay for consumption, we're going to pay for growth, and we're going to pay for happy customers.
Well, and just to triangulate it back to your point, John, around that happens, and these Cloudborn and the cloud partners, they're not dependent on that vendor for their business. They're dependent on the customer and all the services that they're wrapping around those.
Yeah.
And John, another comment or question. Your comment on knitting of partners resonated.
Hi, Karen.
And this question says that's what you reference as a key DISTI competency. So how do you draw vendors into that knitting together?
Yeah, good question, Karen. Thank you. Part of it is
clarify what knitting is, just so people understand.
Well, knitting in Australia is pulling everything together and weaving it together. I presume it's the same over there. Not that I knit, but okay, let me try. Obviously, part of it is the marketing scenario that the vendors I talked about as an example, the Spectre Alliance. So they've come up with this great thing for a Spectre Alliance. So it's up to us to make sure that we have a relationship with each of those and then literally knit them together and showcase the solution through our cyber lab, through our education programs, and physically take them to market. The second way would be we've been very strong on the ecosystem, which vendors work together, and getting a couple of bigger ones in who might be the light in a room, and then they attract all the moths, so to speak, and everyone wants to play in that ecosystem. And then we've been working with them to try and come up with some innovative marketing ways of knitting them together that, to be quite honest, their own marketing department as a single vendor would not allow or approve. But we have got the ability to do that and get away with it because obviously we're independent.
I mean, I think about, Craig, your business, you're a brilliant knitter at the vendor. Multi-vendor knitting, multi-solution within vendor knitting, and then multi-partner knitting. And you guys are good at all of those. It's a huge part of the value in this next era.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time looking at the installed base and figuring out where there's white space and which reseller to bring into that white space. But I'll tell you that we had a vendor who came in and showed us mathematically that if they could team with another vendor who was complementary to them, that both vendors got bigger orders and the reseller got an order 4x the size. And it's counterintuitive because you think everybody's fighting for wallet share, but the reality is people are fighting. The customers are trying to get a solution that solves their problem. And when you bring two in and it solves the problem quicker and faster, they can make a bigger investment because it's solving more of their problems. So the 1 + 1 = 3 has really borne out. And we had one vendor came in and showed us mathematically, here are the deals we do alone, and here are the deals we do teamed with a complementary technology, and the team deals were all bigger.
Because in the software and cloud world, there's not a rack. It's not a case of if I get this appliance into this rack, I've got no more room. So to Craig's point, we can build this solution up to be bigger and better for everyone, in particular the end user getting a better, richer solution out of it.
Yeah, what great examples of what the future of distribution can add in terms of value to both vendors and partners. So with that, the time has flown by. We're already at the end of this SaaS channel playbook session. Craig, Teresa, and John, before we end, any takeaway you'd like to leave with the audience, either with regard to value in this subscription and consumption model in this new world we're talking about, or any new service that you anticipate becoming more prevalent in the future? Teresa, let's start with you.
Well, something I'm deeply passionate about that we're working on is, everybody has to retain their employees and develop their employees. So the great retention intention and how Carahsoft and Next Gen and distribution can play a role in that is really important to me.
Very cool. And John, any takeaways on value or future services for the future of distribution?
Look, I'm glad we are where we are, and I would encourage all the partners to have that leap of faith, let go of the old, and launch into the new.
That's great.
Yep, it's hard to do. And Craig,
I'm going to go short term. We're all 71 days from the end of the federal government fiscal year, so. Everybody out there in our ecosystem is focused on supporting our customers over the next 71 days. So
makes a big difference, that constant customer communication and support. Well, Craig and John, thank you again for taking time to speak with myself and Teresa. Really enjoyed the conversation on the future of distribution, and thank you to the audience and your great questions as well.
Right. Thanks. See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, all. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.
thanks, guys.